Did it take 6 days or 3.7 billion years to create the life that we see on Earth today? Let's take just one part of that question today. Hi, I'm Pastor Doug. Welcome to the Bible Detective. If you get anything out of this video, please leave a comment, tell us what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and then share this video with others to help grow our channel so that more content can be created for more people to see. Evolutionary scientists tell us that life has existed on Earth for about 3.7 billion years. But Genesis says that it only took God 6 days to create everything on the Earth. Now, many Christians and other believers in a monotheistic God, a creator God, have attempted to harmonize evolutionary theory with Genesis. This is called theistic evolution. Theistic having to do with theos, the Greek word for God. So the way the Bible-believing evolutionists do this is they view each day as millions of years. Now, let's do a little math here for a little bit. If life on Earth is approximately 3.7 billion years in existence, then that would mean that each day would have been almost 617 million years long. But is that doable? Is it really possible to interpret Genesis 1 in that way? Let's take a look at something here. First, Genesis 1 uses the Hebrew word for yom. That's the Hebrew word for day. It's all over Genesis 1. In fact, it's the normal word for day in the Hebrew Scriptures. And Hebrew scholars, and I'm not one of them, but Hebrew scholars tell us that every time the word yom appears in Scripture with a specific number assigned to it, it always refers to a 24-hour day. So that's pretty strong evidence right there that this attempt to harmonize evolution with Genesis 1 probably is not going to work. And second, this is reinforced by the fact that Genesis 1 repeatedly uses an expression referring to the evening and the morning, as you can see here on the screen. There was evening and there was morning one day. There was evening and there was morning a second day. There was evening and there was morning a third day, and so on through the 6 days of creation. Clearly, this specifies a 24-hour day, with the night portion coming first, by the way, and the morning portion, or the daylight portion, coming second. This is why Jews to this day believe that a new day begins at sundown and extends until sundown the following day, rather than our midnight to midnight reckoning, which was based on the old pagan Roman Empire. So that makes a difference in how days are calculated. So now some people say, well, this can't possibly be referring to a 24-hour day because the sun was not created until the fourth day, according to Genesis chapter 1. So how can you have 3 days, 3 24-hour days, before you get the sun actually being created? However, the book of Revelation, particularly chapters 21 and 22, the last 2 chapters of the Bible, make a suggestion here. They're not talking about creation, to be fair. They're talking about the new earth, when sin has been eradicated and God's people are with the Lord forever, perfect in eternity. But it says there that, and if you want the exact references, it's Revelation 21, verse 23, and I believe the other one is chapter 22, verse 5. And it talks about how there's no need for the sun because the glory of God is the light for that New Jerusalem, that city, the New Jerusalem. So it's certainly possible that God, on day one of creation week, back in Genesis 1, when he said, let there be light, and there was light, that God maybe simply just allowed his glory, his light, to shine upon the earth. And then spinning the earth on its axis created a 24-hour day. We can't prove that, of course, but that is certainly doable, and it means that the objection doesn't stand up as very strong, especially when you take a look at the first two pieces of evidence as we've looked at. The fact that Yom occurs in Genesis 1 repeatedly with a specific number attached to it, and that also, number two, that Genesis 1 repeatedly refers to an evening and a morning being a day. So this objection about the sun really doesn't hold a lot of weight. A third reason why this is very difficult to harmonize evolution with, or the idea at least of millions of years for each day, is that the language in Genesis 2, when compared with the language of the Sabbath commandment in Exodus 20, reveals that the commandment is based on the former, based on the creation week, as you can see here on the screen. Reading again, as I always do, from the New American Standard Bible, notice that Genesis 2, verses 2 and 3, this is right after Genesis 1 completes the creation of the world, and immediately in Genesis chapter 2, it kind of repeats that he created the world. And then in verse 2 here, it says, he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. Notice he did three things on the seventh day of that first week of the planet's existence. He rested, he blessed it, and he sanctified it, which means he made it holy. Now let's look at the Sabbath commandment in Exodus chapter 20. It's a long commandment. In order to get it all on one screen for comparison purposes, we just quote part of verse 8 and then also verse 11, the first and last verses here. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And here comes the reason in verse 11. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and everything that is in them, and he rested, there's that verb, rested again, on the seventh day. For that reason the Lord blessed the Sabbath, there's the word blessed, that verb, and made it holy, which is the same thing as to sanctify the day. To make holy is to sanctify, which is also what Genesis 2 declares about the seventh day of the first week of creation. Now, everyone knows, even the vast majority of Christians for whom the seventh day, Saturday, Sabbath, means nothing to most, but we all acknowledge it's just a fact, objectively, that the Sabbath commandment referred to a day in the week that was the regular 24-hour day, like other 24-hour days, except this one was special because God had made it holy. So the Sabbath commandment would make no sense, since it's based on what happened in the creation week. The Sabbath commandment would make no sense if the days in the creation week were not literal 24-hour days. Which leads to a very interesting question. Particularly, I'm asking this of fellow Christians. Do you really think that evolution would have become so popular if the whole world, had continued to keep the seventh day Sabbath? Something to think about, isn't it? Finally, there's a simple scientific fact that excludes any sequence of creation events that's depicted in Genesis 1 from being interpreted as, 617 million years for each day of creation week. And that's simply the oxygen-carbon cycle. Animals and humans inhale oxygen, right? We inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. Whereas plants take in carbon dioxide and they give off oxygen. Plants need animals and people. Animals and people need plants. There's that relationship that is necessary. Now, think about this. If each day of creation week were millions of years long, the plant life created on the third day, according to Genesis 1, would have long ago died off before animals and people were created, which is on the sixth day. Furthermore, if each night portion of each creation day were millions of years long, no photosynthesis would have occurred to keep the plants alive. The simple truth is that there's really no way to reconcile Genesis 1 with evolutionary theory. It's an either-or proposition. You either accept the account as written in Genesis 1, or you accept the theory of evolution. Christians who try to harmonize the two are simply misinformed and misguided. In this case, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. The scripture just will not allow it. Now, many Christians will do this because, well, the scientists say this, and it's science, so it must be true. Well, just take a breath. What's science based on? Just simple question. What is science based on? It's based on human observations of things in the natural world and or experimentations. No one was present at creation week until you get to the sixth day, and Adam and Eve were created. But no one was there when it began. So there was no observation. No one has produced in a laboratory a repeat of creation of life. There have been some experiments, and in the end, they have been debunked. So, Christians who are saying, well, it's got to be true because science says it. Well, it's not science. Evolution is a scientific theory, and with a few premises, if you accept certain assumptions or premises, there's some logic to it. The problem is the premises can't be proven. But I digress a little bit because I want to focus here just on Genesis 1 and versus evolution. And on basis of evolution 1, if you're a Christian or a Jew who believes in the historicity of the Bible and the historicity of the book of Genesis, there just is no way to reconcile the two. Now, a lot more could be said about the scriptures and evolution, even, and certainly a lot more could be said about science and evolution, but we'll let these thoughts based on Genesis 1 just kind of ruminate in your mind for now. So thank you for joining us today. Until next time, remember that with a little bit of effort and the application of some common sense principles of interpretation, you too can become a Bible detective.